Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Tired as a Mother, a podcast for busy moms. Today, I have Stephanie Gibson with me. She is my...
Hello.
Hi. So thank you for joining in with us today. She's not here in person, but she is joining us from Ohio today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, anytime. So, a little background for you guys. Me and Stephanie, we're family. She's my
hmm
sister-in-law, but we became moms really close in time. So, like, first I became a mom, and then she did, and our kids are really close in age. And so she hears all the crazy, funny stories. I send her text messages where I'm like, oh my gosh, look what my kid did. And I send her the pictures, and she does the same. So it's nice to have someone around. And I encourage this all the time in this podcast, but find you a mom friend and share the crazy life. Like, it's nice to have her around. But
Absolutely. Thanks for
yes.
you.
Well, thank you. And guys, she is beyond just, my sister-in-law. She's doing some crazy, awesome stuff. She right now has how old now? How old are your kids?
My oldest is 2.5, and my youngest just turned 10 months.
Yeah, so she is in the thick of it, guys, but she is just releasing her new novel, her first book she's published. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your novel. I've actually got a little sneak peek, guys, and it is some pretty awesome stuff. So I'll let her tell you about that.
Well, thank you so much. I have been working on this novel for several years and just was extremely excited when I landed a publishing deal. It's called The Girl in the Stolen Fiddle, and it is a young adult fantasy fiction novel. And it's about a girl named Melinda who lives a life that's pretty relatable, I think, to everybody, and finds herself given a task to return a stolen fiddle, which just takes her on a crazy adventure and lots of twists and turns. And yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, guys, so definitely check that out when that drops. Do you have a release date yet?
I actually will be at the end of this week opening up for pre-orders and on my website, stephaniejulia.com, and every pre-order will receive a signed copy. So,
oh, how fun. I'm definitely
that.
going to have to get one of those.
Yeah.
But guys, check that out. We'll put a link in the video for you guys to check that out. But my question is, and I don't even think we've talked about this, but how in the world did you make time to make this happen while you have two young children? Because,
oh, wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a challenge. I had been working on this project before I had kids, and so a lot of it was completed before I had kids, but a lot of story writing and editing and stuff was happening during nap times, late at night when the kids were asleep, and I also enlisted my husband to watch the kids while I worked on it. So that was very nice.
Yeah, it's definitely like a team effort. I tell people all the time, like, I go to school and stuff like that, but I couldn't do it without support. And having a support system is so big. Who is some of the people that are supportive in your life? That's really, how do they help you, and how do you reach out and ask for help when you need it?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, I would say my family, my mom and dad and my sister live very near us, and they are definitely kind of that support system for me. They are always happy to step in and babysit when I need someone to watch the kids for an evening, or even just let me have a nap when they were newborns and such. So that was really helpful. But and my husband also is definitely a big part of my support system, and we work together as a team to kind of help each other have downtime and time to do things.
That's so important.
Yeah. But I actually didn't have much of a support system at all in the very beginning, because I think the nearest family I had in the beginning was 2 hours away. So it's kind of a recent thing for me to have the support system that I do, and it's made such a huge difference. Like, I'm not nearly as stressed as I used to be, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it just shows you that how much having people in your life to step in. And usually, like, one thing for me, when you first have a child, you're kind of reluctant to ask people for help because you
Yeah.
feel like, okay, I'm a mom now, I have to do all the things. But
Right.
it's not that way. Like, it is a group effort. It is, that's why you have family. That's why you have friends. And psychology actually shows that children who grow up with a family or friends that kind of grow with them, they thrive. And so
Right. Yeah.
it's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit. I know, like, you grew up in a home that was Mennonite. Is that correct? Yeah. So
Is.
how has some of the things that you experienced during that time growing up like that? Because not everyone grows up in a culture like that. What have you
Right.
taken away from that and used in your own parenting? And maybe what's some of the stuff that you were like, this may not be for me?
That's a good question too. Yeah, that's kind of a hard question for me to answer because I guess when you're raised a certain way, that's what's normal to you. Like it's hard to step out of that and be like realizing, what parts of that are unique to being brought up Mennonite and what parts are,
That's true.
just part of your family. But I think having been brought up Mennonite, it's very large focus on living simple and just being focused on the people around you and your family. That's a very big part of that culture. So I think that's something I have taken with me and try to teach my kids as well. Like, so, not necessarily needing to have the biggest and best things all the time. Like that's definitely an aspect of that culture. And so like one of the things that I love is thrifting.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Just
so, like,
for the listeners out there, so you guys know a little bit more background, me and Stephanie has a thrifting problem. It's what we
Absolutely.
do. It's what we do for fun. That's how we get our mom time away from the kids.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that kind of being very thrifty and frugal culture is part of the Mennonite culture that I grew up in as well. And part that I know not only is important to me, but I enjoy.
Yeah,
So
I think a lot of people can really take away some positive things to look into that different type of culture. And, there's so much good in different cultures to look into. And that's why I asked you the question, is because, you have a different perspective, and getting perspective from different cultures is so important, and to take away the positive, because there's something to learn from everyone. And so
right.
thanks for sharing that with me. And one thing, guys, when you have someone that you can kind of text and share, like, oh my gosh, I'm having the worst mom day ever. Like, how many times have we done that, Stephanie? Like,
Oh man, so many.
yes. So I'll tell you a little story, and you can be thinking about some stories of yours, because I just want to share with you guys in the audience that mom life is totally not perfect. It is like totally just winging it most of the time, let's be honest. And
Yes.
some crazy funny things happen, and I'll show you a story. This week on Thursday, I was in a meeting online on Zoom. And Stephanie, I've not told you this one, so this is a new one for you. I was on a Zoom meeting with my newspaper staff, and I was just sitting there, so watching things, listening to things, and my friend DeForest was like, Christen, you're calling me. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm standing right here. What are you talking about? He's like, no, you're calling me. I was like, oh no. I was home alone because Jeff, my husband, was at work, and so I go. And Grayson, my oldest, he is in another room hiding with the phone and trying to talk to people on my phone. And I grab it from him. And that was, that's cool, whatever. People at the paper know that I'm a mom, and we just all laughed about it. But then later, I go in and he's called random people, like just random people.
No.
He called a stranger, and I noticed a number on there. And I was like, this is a Somerset number. I'm from Somerset, Kentucky. And I was like, maybe I should call these people back. And so I call, and I was like, hi, may I ask who this is? And he was like, I was wondering the same thing. I was like, oh no.
Oh, no.
I was like, well, I'm sorry. I was in a meeting and a Zoom call, and my child snuck off with my phone. He was like, yeah. He's like, is your child named Grayson? I was like, yes. And he was like, well, I asked who it was, and he said, my name's Grayson, and I stole mommy's phone, and I'm hiding from her. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, well, I'm sorry about that. And he's like, uh-huh. And I was like, oh no. And then I keep looking, and I see this another number, and I'm like, I don't really recognize this number, but I had called it before. And
Okay.
I looked, I was like, oh no. Oh no, Stephanie, you know who it was? It was the editor-in-chief at the Commonwealth Journal, in which I'm trying to get an internship. He called him like six times in a row, and I just sat there and I stared, and I just sat in the floor. I'm like, it's over for me. My career hasn't even started, and it's over. Yeah, well, yeah, mom life, guys, mom life, but it's all good. Like, he called me back the next day, and he was like, hi, it's Jeff Neal from the Commonwealth Journal. And I was like, oh, just didn't know what to expect. I was like, oh gosh, he's gonna think I'm a crazy stalker or something that's called him over and over because he won't answer his phone. But it was cool. Like, he offered me to work to work there, story by story, and I apologized. He's like, it's fine, you know? And I was like, you know what? That's just like 2022 for you. Like, working from home, winging it with children. And I laugh about it now, but at the time I'm like, oh my gosh, my career is over.
Well, I don't know. It sounds like you might need to hire Grayson as your agent.
Apparently, like, he must be like my good luck charm or something. I don't know. But yeah, I've definitely told Stephanie lots of these stories. I believe the worst, what would you say is the worst one? Was it the eggs? Do you remember?
That was a pretty bad one.
Yeah, guys. So
that was exciting.
Yes. Another time I was in my room working. The kids, they were like really young too, weren't they? They were like the ages. Yeah. They were how old your kids are now, right?
Probably, yeah. Lila had to be pretty little.
Yeah, so they stole the eggs. I promise I watch my kids, y'all. They just really sneaky.
It happens. Things happen.
They grab eggs out of the refrigerator, and like I'm in my room, and I close the door, and I'm like, okay, they can't get out of the house. The door's locked. They're playing with their toys. They're watching TV. They're being good. I'm gonna take like 10 minutes and shut the door in my bedroom and take a quiz. Well. I open the door, and they're having a great time. They're laughing. They're, I'm like, oh, they're playing so well together. I open the door, and there's eggs smashed all over the hallway floor and the walls and the doors. Like, guys.
They're having a good old time.
Oh, yeah, they had a good time. But I've just shared that with you all because, yes, mom life is crazy, and you just kind of have to, like, not take it too seriously. For real.
Absolutely.
So I share all these stories. So now it's your turn, Stephanie.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I did have something happen just this week that wasn't quite as exciting as, the phone incident. But I was working with my youngest, who's 10 months old, and just helping her get cleaned up for lunch and everything. And I should say our refrigerator had quit working for about a week or so. So we had a mini fridge in the garage that we had kind of stashed just a few items in to try to save them. And my 2-year-old was cooking in his little toy kitchen. And he all of a sudden just walks up to me and says, Mommy, I've been cooking. And, he's so proud of himself. And so I'm just like, good job. And, but he keeps insisting that he's been cooking. So I decide I probably should check out what exactly he's doing. And I go over there, and he has emptied an entire bag of brown sugar onto like a cookie tray. And so I'm like looking at this, and he's been digging his hands in it and probably eating it. And so I take it, and I throw it away. And I was sitting there telling him, why we don't do this. And when I turn around, my 10-month-old has found a plop of brown sugar and is eating it as fast as she possibly can. And I'm just it was a very chaotic moment.
Oh man, I bet you they were bouncing off the walls after that.
Oh yeah. No nap time that day.
Oh yeah, fun stuff. But yes, again, guys, we're just sharing these stories to show you that mom life is messy. You just kind of roll with it. So yeah, there's the first topic there. But yeah, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about your book. I know you've already told us a little bit about it, but what are some things that you did to kind of carve out time for, writing what you need to write and do all the things you need to do to send this off to a publisher? Because I know that was kind of stressful.
Right. And it's even worse because I'm a horrible procrastinator.
I feel ya.
I would just kind of, not carve out time until there's a deadline. And then all of a sudden I have so much that needs to be done. And, it kind of forces you to carve out time. And there was a lot of, after the kids went to sleep, just every night, just for 2 hours every night before going to bed. And this is part of the time I have a pretty young, newborn. So I'm not getting a lot of sleep anyway. But so it really was a lot of kind of panic working. But then I did also get my mom, like I said, she's very helpful. So it's every now and then she'd watch the kids for me while I tried to write. And then my husband too would watch the kids in the evening sometimes while I did some writing and stuff. But before that, when I only had one child, because I've been working on this book for a while, it was a lot easier because I could, whenever he took a nap, just work on writing while he was napping. But when you have two kids, the nap times don't always line up. So that made it a little more challenging. But when they're really little, I could let my youngest play with some toys while I was writing. 2-year-olds, it's not as easy. They don't want you. They want your attention. They will not let you sit there and type. They will try to type for you. So that was a little more challenging. But.
Yes, I think some people have the misconception that you have your newborn, and your newborn is going to be the hardest stage because they can't do anything.
Right.
But then
that was me. I had that misconception.
I feel ya. And then they turn into toddlers, and they just are monkeys. They climb everything. And as soon as you turn your head, they have this sensor that goes off and says, I'm going to do the craziest thing I can think of.
Yes, exactly. They know when you're not paying attention, then they try to do whatever they can do.
Exactly. And now, tell me a little bit. I know you just already mentioned a little bit about it, but you were saying when you first went into motherhood, you didn't have a whole lot of people around you. What would you do different if you could go back now that you have 2 kids? Because if you're anything like me, you have the first kid and it's you're definitely winging it. You have no idea. Right. You have those failures where you're that probably wasn't the best, but we made it, whatever. And we adjust and go forward. So when you have your second child, you know what to expect. So what would you do differently?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think the main thing I would do differently is I would just be less hard on myself because, it's kind of like you were saying, you get all worked up when you're a first-time parent. You just feel like you're doing everything wrong and you don't know what you're doing. And it can be a little scary. You feel like you're not doing anything right, and so I think I would be less hard on myself. I would realize that I was just doing the best I can, and that as long as you're loving that baby and doing the best you can, then you're doing pretty good. And I would tell myself that.
I think I would tell myself the same thing. And I think it's so important to take and, like you said, be easy on yourself. This job is hard. Sometimes, I've worked, outside the home. I've worked inside the home. I've, went to college. And some of my hardest days are the ones at home with my kids.
Yes.
And
I am a stay-at-home mom. So I have a lot of respect for those that do both and work outside the home and be a mom at home too, because that would be tough. But being just a stay-at-home mom is tough enough for me.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've got like kind of a system going, because I know like you've given me some great advice. And one of the things that I will share with my audience here is that, so Stephanie does stay at home, but one of my struggles as a mom is keeping my house clean, because I have so much stuff going around me that sometimes it gets neglected. And so
Right.
you gave me a tip about doing laundry every day. Do you remember which one you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell them a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, it's so easy to get buried in laundry. So I decided that I was just going to make myself do one load of laundry a day. And I take the laundry basket down, throw in a load, and I actually have the load from yesterday in the dryer. So my system is to wash one load, and then when it dries, put it in the dryer, and then fold the laundry from the day before. And so there's always laundry that's being washed, dried, and put away, but it's always one load. So that kind of keeps the system moving so we don't get, lost in laundry.
And for me, it was kind of eye-opening, because I no longer felt so overwhelmed, because I'm like, oh, I only just have to do one. Like, if I just do one.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
And sometimes, you have the days where you have tons of laundry, especially with small children.
Yeah.
But
right.
it keeps things going, and you don't feel so overwhelmed. It's like taking
you
it
get
one.
started and do a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, taking things on perspectively like that is so important.
Yeah.
It is.
And I've actually expanded that into other areas of my life. I've also got a system now where I have what I call the room of the day. And so I have a schedule, and I just focus on one room, cleaning one room, straightening it up. And that also kind of helps keep me from getting overwhelmed, because if the entire house is a mess, which it does, because it still does get to where the entire house gets to be a mess sometimes, I can look at my schedule and say, I'm just going to clean this room, and that helps me stay on track as well.
Yeah, that's really good. I think you showed me a picture, because if you guys didn't know, I'm all about list and chore charts. So I got Stephanie one for Christmas, and
I love it.
Yeah, and I seen her like system of how she writes on it, and she writes on it differently than I do, which just shows you people have different systems. But I seen her write on it, room of the day. I was like, oh, what? That's just so cool. Like, yeah, mom stuff, guys. We nerd over into mom stuff. I think we're getting old now, Stephanie.
I know, we get excited over this stuff.
Over laundry. So you have a really small child right now. She's 10 months old, right?
Yes.
So it's been a little while since it's been 2 years since I had a newborn. Tell people how it was at first when you became a mom, and how you do things differently now that you've kind of went through the growing pains of being a mom.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the transition to becoming a mom was really tough on me. I was very overwhelmed in the beginning. And I think it's that not knowing what to expect, not knowing. Yeah, now I realize that there are phases, and the phases come and go pretty fast when it comes to newborns and that first year of life. And before, it kind of was more like just having no idea how long this was going to last, what was going to happen next. And just, so reading up on those developmental phases really helped me a lot. and realizing that it is an adjustment and a transition, but you will adjust and you will get used to it, and you will find those systems that work for you. And so that really made it a lot easier for me the second time around, because it was still tough. It was a completely new transition, but realizing that, okay, it's going to be hard for a little while until I get things figured out. And then I will find those systems, and I will figure out, what works the best. And that made it a lot easier the second time around, even though it was still a tough transition.
I completely agree. I think the first time around, because our kids are close to the same age, so the first time around, you feel like those stages are going to be forever. Like, the whole, like, my kid's not
You'll
sleeping.
never sleep again.
I will never sleep again. But then with the second one, you're like, okay, it just takes them like a year or two to figure this out, and like, it'll be okay. And then another thing that I found crazy is, when we decided to have a second child, I was like, my first one was like a pretty easy child until he got too. That's a whole different other story.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
you know, he's pretty easy. And so when we have our second child, I've got it all figured out. She is like the exact opposite of my other one. So I felt like I was just starting over. Like, I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, it is crazy how different kids are right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have completely different personality, completely different challenges and strengths just right from the beginning. And it threw me for a loop too.
Yeah, I know we both like to read. What are some books that have kind of helped you along the way?
Help me with parenting or just in general?
With parenting. We'll stick with that because I know we got a long list.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've done a lot of reading, and I've kind of, picked up different things. It's kind of one of those, you find what works for you and kind of ignore the things that don't. And so I feel like even just within the same parenting books, you find some of that stuff. Like, you just pick the stuff that, this could work, and you try different things. And so one of the books that I did that with was actually called The Happiest Toddler on the Block, which I liked it. I did, but there were some things that, I ignored and some things that I have used. And then another book that I actually had from before my first child was even born was called The Power of a Praying Parent. And that has been one that I have really gone back to again and again because, as parents, we're going to make mistakes. There's no such thing as a perfect parent. And so you need to rely on something bigger than yourself as you're going through this because you're going to mess up. That's just how it is.
It's
true. You can read all the books in the world and you're going to mess up.
It's true. Yes.
So
I'll have to check out. I'll have to check that out. I know some days, like, especially in the beginning, you're so overwhelmed. You do kind of have to rely on your faith and rely on God. Be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. God, please don't let me mess up my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just be honest. Yes, throw that out there.
It's true. It's so true.
Yeah. So what are some other things that you do? We've talked a little bit about how you've tried to keep like your house clean and some books. What are some things that you've learned along the way that you want other parents to know about, or other moms, new moms, growing into a mom, whatever that is?
Well, I think that you need to make sure that you keep doing things that you enjoy. Like, don't, and for me, that was writing and also just being outside, and find ways to bring your children into that in reading. So like recently, our family has been trying to do more family hiking, which is something that I wasn't sure was going to go super well with a 2-year-old, but it's actually gone really great. He loves it. He will, he comes up and says, "I want to go hiking," and every time my husband gets home, and we don't always because that's exhausting, but he loves doing it, and just finding those ways to do the things that you love, but bring your kids in that with you. That has been something I've been. And maybe it's like that he's getting to the age that you can actually do that. But it's just something I've been learning lately, that I've been exploring ways to do that, because it's easy to get lost in just the work of it, I guess. And just finding ways to have fun as a family has been something I've been working on lately.
I think that's important. I think I need to work on that as well. I think sometimes it's so easy to get lost in the identity of motherhood because it's so involved, and you almost forget to be like, okay, I need to, step back a little bit and do some of the things that I enjoy, or, carve time out to do that, because it's so easy, because we love our kids. We love our kids, and we want to be with our kids and do things with them, but it's exhausting sometimes.
It is. It is. Yes. And if you take time for that rest, you'll be more rested and be able to pour more into them as well. And, if you're exhausted all the time, that's not going to be good for them either.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I had like a mentor when I first became a mom, and she has 4 or 5 kids, and I was like, what advice would you give me? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. And she said, you can't work from an empty cup. You can't pour into other people's cup and keep your family full and thriving when you're running on empty yourself. So you have to make time to fill up your cup by self-care, doing the things you love to do, and being able to recognize when you're running on empty, because once you're running on empty, it is hard to get the cup back full.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah, and another thing that you mentioned was you were taking your kids outside. You're doing hikes with with your oldest, and so one thing I seen online the other day, and it was so true. I was like, oh, I need to say this to somebody. So I'll tell you to all of you. It was talking about how when you're having a tough day in the house, like your kids are just like not listening to you, you feel like you just want to like bang your head against the wall because nothing is working. Let's be honest, we've all been there. It was saying, just take your kids outside. Just, step away, let them run, let them play. And so I thought about it, and it works. It really does. Stepping away from, I don't know if it's like the atmosphere. I don't know if there's something, scientifically going outside helps them. I don't know, but it helps.
It really just makes all behavior issues pretty much disappear.
Yeah. So there's a tip for you guys. Take your kids outside when things are getting tough. And the thing that I read was it works for all ages. Mm-hmm. It was talking
even myself.
Yes, me too. Like when I really get down, I will go for a walk. I'll be like, okay, I tell my husband, I'm like, I'm going for a walk. Like if I don't go for a walk, I'm going to lose it.
Right.
But it helps. It really does. Another thing they said was to, especially for younger children, put your kids in the bath. I was like, that's a good idea. So I think I'm going to be trying that one.
Yeah, that's I hadn't thought of that one.
Yeah. So how has being a parent really influenced you, like in your work, in your writing? I know you used to be a teacher. So what did you learn from teaching young children, and what do you bring into your home?
Honestly, one of the main things I've learned from teaching is it's really taught me a lot about myself, which I always used to say that I feel like the kids have taught me more than I teach them when I was a teacher, because just some of the things that we have to do, like with kids, it just honestly, for me, makes me look at what I think maybe God looks at me, because when we have little kids, they are learning, they are trying things out, and just they will purposely do things sometimes to like get on your nerves or not do what you said, but you still love them no matter what, like you still care about them. You're not going to all of a sudden despise them or hate them. Like they're your kids, so you love them. And no matter what they do, and you still want to teach them, you still want to work with them. And, sometimes when I look at that, I'm like, I bet this is what God does when he looks at us. Like, no matter what we do, no matter how messed up we do, no matter what we do to God, he still looks at us like his kid.
I love that. It's so neat that you can take that experience and look at it from that perspective, and it does kind of go into parenting, because we're going to have bad days. Our kids are not going to be perfect, but in the end, we're going to love them, and at the end of the day, we can say, I still love my kid. It's all good.
Right. Right.
Tomorrow is a new day. His mercies are new every day. And I say that all the time, especially as parenting. So if you're out there and you're having a bad mom day, his mercies are new every day.
Yes.
Tomorrow is a new day. Yes. So
thank goodness for that.
Yes. So tell us a little bit. I know you've talked a little bit what your book is about. You told us that you've been writing it while you've had small children. You've been working on it for a few years. But what has the process of getting published looked like for you?
It has been a learning process. I've already learned so much about just the whole publishing industry, and just breaking in there. It's been really interesting. Like, even if I'm hoping to go further than this, but even if I don't, I'm really thankful for this experience just because of how much I've learned. But it's been challenging. Basically, it's really hard to break in. You have to query different agents and publishers, and I've gotten a lot of rejection letters, and I've heard the same story from a lot of published authors that it was really discouraging to like have worked so hard on this project and then just get kind of rejected again and again and again. And part of the reason for that is the market right now is super flooded. And so like a lot of it has to do with your connections and how big of an audience you already have. That's how you land one of those big publishing deals. So I learned a lot about that. So that was an interesting discovery. But so the publisher I have now is actually considered a small press. So they are more willing to accept kind of those unknown authors and those people who are trying to start their first first published novel. They're willing to take that chance on somebody more so than like the big name, the big five we call them, HarperCollins and places like that. And it's kind of just like a way to get your foot in the door and start building that audience and that sort of thing. So, and like I said, I'm already learning so much about kind of what to do better. I'm actually brainstorming for my next book, trying to look. So, I think that it's an interesting process that it's just a big world that I hadn't even realized what was all involved in it before I kind of jumped in. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations to you for stepping into that role, even though you're fully immersed into the mom world.
Yes.
And taking on that steps to publish your book. Like, I'm a writer as well, and being a writer can be tiresome. It really is, because some days, you got this thriving passion in you to write something, and then when you sit down to do it, everything around you is just chaos, and so it's hard to step into that sometimes. And that's why I just keep saying I can't, like, it's awesome that you've done that while you had kids, and you're continuing to do that, sounds like. So
going to try.
Yeah.
And I like that you said that, because that has been one of the biggest challenges, because it is so hard. Like, I do not like to write with any noise. Like, I don't even write with music going. Like, I can't think. So having kids, it's impossible for me to hardly write when they're awake and around. So that was definitely a big challenge, because it's just hard to think when you have to either stop every 2 seconds to take care of something, or just there's so much noise.
I totally relate. And one of the things that I've done to try to help that, because writing is my career. I write for the newspaper. Most of my school assignments is writing. So one of the things that I've tried doing, and I'm sure you can relate, is I try to carve out windows of time that I know they're going to be like asleep. My kids don't take naps anymore. Yes. Unfortunately, I miss those days.
I know.
But I try to get up really early in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. I am so not a morning person. But I realized about like 4 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning, I can wake up, have like 30 minutes to actually be awake, and the whole house is so quiet, and I can really sit in there. And when you start writing and you really step into that, like, okay, I know what I'm writing about. Just like, it's just kind of like flowing out of me. You don't get interrupted, and it's so nice. So one of the other tips that my mentor told me was, wake up before your kids do every single day, whether you be a writer or you go to, work every day, or you're a stay-at-home mom. Wake up before your kids do. Have some time to yourself. Drink your coffee without your kids screaming. Don't wake up with your kids screaming. Don't let your kid be your alarm clock. That was a big one for me, because it's so stressful. In the beginning, I think I would like sleep until, one of the kids woke up, and they would, know to be like, hey, I'm up. Or they'll make some noise, because I'm a really light sleeper, so they would wake me up. But it was stressful, because as soon as you wake up, you're like, oh, I have to tend to this person and put myself on hold. And That is.
Yeah, I'm right there right now. I like this advice. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yeah, it helps. It's hard. I'll admit it. It's hard because I'm not a morning person. So I started
No, me
out
neither.
small. Like I would get up like 15 minutes early one week and then just keep like dialing it back. And sometimes I still don't get up that early. But when I really need to I feel like I need some self-care and some time alone, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I just like sit there for like 30 minutes, drink my coffee in silence, and I feel ready to write. I feel ready to like conquer things. So that's been a big one for me.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I like that you said you started with 15 minutes earlier. I might have to try that.
Oh yeah, I think if I would have just deep dived into the whole 4 a.m. thing, I probably wouldn't have made it.
No. Yeah, that sounded intimidating, but yeah, I like the start with 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah, like I like my sleep. It's bad. My husband jokes that when I don't have sleep, he calls me Robert because I'm angry, and he says I'm the angry Robert going around. And he'll tell me, he's like, "You can come back and talk to me when Robert's gone," and I'm like, "Well, let me sleep, let me have a nap, and maybe Robert will leave." Yeah,
I'm right there.
the struggle is real. But anyways, yes. So yeah, congratulations to you. And guys, I will provide a link so you can check out her latest book. And what was the name of that book? Tell everybody a little bit about it again.
The Girl in the Stolen Fiddle.
Yes, guys, it's so good. I got a sneak peek. I'm not going to lie. And I reviewed her book. It is so good. If you like novels, if you like fantasy novels, like it reminded me, and I'll tell you this, Stephanie, it reminded me of like C.S. Lewis. You know,
awesome. He's my hero. So.
Is he really? Okay, yes. So, like, he wrote The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was telling somebody a little bit about it. I'm like, it kind of reminds me of this because he has like the message in it, but it's not like in your face. And like, it's so good. I just kept wanting to know more. And so you're going to write like a second book, right?
Yes.
Right? You are? Okay, cool. Because
I want to try.
Yes, check it out, guys. And thank you, Stephanie, for joining me. Thanks for sharing your mom stories. Thanks for being my support all this time. And thanks for coming on the show. So thank you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And guys, make sure you check out this episode at theeasternprogress.com. You can also check out the episode on the Eastern Progress Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure to check out StephanieJuliaGibson.com to see her newest and latest novel coming up. Thanks again.